Hi everybody! I've got a new pattern for you today, and I'm really excited about this one because I think it turned out super cute. I developed it just a couple days ago, and I can't wait to teach you how to make it. It's this little fox here with cute little brown feet and the cutest little nose and just the cutest little tail. I am so obsessed. I'm so glad that this turned out as well as it did. And I can't wait to teach you how to make it. It is a no-sew pattern, so there's no sewing involved. You just make it all the way in a continuous line down from the nose to the tail. And these take me about 20 minutes to work up myself. And let's just get to it. The tools you're going to need to make this are a 3.75 millimeter crochet hook. It is also the F5. So that's what I've got. You're going to want a pair of scissors that can cut through your thread. Any scissors will do as long as they can cut your thread. And a large eye needle. It's like a tapestry needle, so that we can close up all of our holes at the end. You're also going to want some stuffing. This is just my standard polyfill stuffing. You're not going to need very much. Honestly, this is probably too much from what I'm going to need. More like this much. Very small amount. You're also going to want a set of 2 safety eyes. Ooh, almost lost them. Set of 2 safety eyes that are 8 millimeter each. These are the ones that I've got. You can also make them in color if you want. And then for the yarn, you're going to want to have all of it 5 millimeter, and the brand doesn't matter. Just go with what your heart says that you should go with. I honestly don't know what half the brands I have are, so I've got this 5 millimeter white yarn, this orange, and a nice dark brown. Once you have all your pieces assembled, let's just get going. We are going to start with a magic circle, which I will go over how to make, and we're going to start with the orange yarn. So I have my orange yarn here. What you're going to do is holding the crochet hook in your dominant hand. I'm going to be doing this already. And the yarn is going to go around your left fingers. So take your 2 fingers on your left hand, the pointer and the middle, and your thumb. And you're going to drape the yarn over those 2 fingers. You don't need very much tail for this. So you're going to drape it over, and then you're going to take your thumb and pinch the yarn to your middle finger. And then wrap the yarn around those 2 fingers and cross it over in the back, just like that. And then you can take that yarn and roll your hand towards you so that you have 2 parallel lines along the back of your fingers and that cross in the front. Once it's over here, pinch it between the other 2 fingers that you have on that hand so that you can just hold it in place with just a little bit of tension that you can work with. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your hook and go under the outer yarn and then over the inner yarn. And it's easier if you do that by having the hook facing towards your fingers while you're doing it. That way you can then grab the yarn, the inner yarn, and pull it just barely to the other side. And then turn it over so it's got that little twist in it. And then you're going to go under the yarn that you've been holding with those other 2 fingers. And then pull it through that little loop that you just made. And that should make just a little knot there. Once you have all that, you're going to take your hand that's holding the crochet hook and just pinch right around that whole knot so you can slide it off of your fingers without losing any of the progress that you've just made. And that is your magic circle. I like to take an extra step here, and where this thread is going around and through and out the back of the loop, I like to just slide it off just so it's no longer doing that, and it just makes it so it slides a little bit easier and there's less friction, and it makes it so your magic circle, which is magic because it can be made tighter by pulling on your tail, it makes it slide just a little bit easier. So now that we have this, I'm going to set up myself up to be able to crochet into it. So I'm going to hold on to it with my thumb and my 2 central fingers on my hand, and then I'm going to let the working end of my yarn go so that I can grab it with my tensioning finger. You can tension however you want to. I like to just fold my pointer finger over it like that. Then I'm going to widen this gap a little bit so that I can work into it. And then we're going to start going around the circle with single crochets. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into the circle for my first single crochet, grab the yarn, and then pull it out back through the magic circle again, making sure to grab both the tail and the loop. And then once I have the 2 loops here, I'm going to grab the yarn again and pull it through both those 2 loops. And that is a single crochet. We're going to do another go through the circle, grab the yarn, pull it through, and grab the yarn, pull it through both. And then on this last one, instead of pulling through both, we're going to stop where there's just the 2 loops here. And we're going to do a color change to white. It's a little tricky because we have to keep that magic circle stable while we do this. So to do so, I'm going to leave my crochet hook in. I'm going to grab my scissors, and I'm going to I'm kind of pinching the yarns here so it doesn't go anywhere on me. And you're going to cut the yarn just like an inch or 2 away from the hook so that we can change over to white. So I got my white thread here, and I'm going to just tie a square knot nice and close up to this hook. Okay, so I tied it up close to the hook, but then I also lost my second part of my single crochet. That's fine. As you can see, it just left me a little inch, and I can then start my single crochet again. Not a big deal. Just as long as it's still going around the whole magic circle as it should be. And then I'm going to finish my single crochet by grabbing the white yarn and pulling it through. And now I have my 3 single crochet stitches around the magic circle, and I'm going to do another single crochet in white all the way through. And then on my last one, same as before, I'm going to stop with the 2 loops on it. And that just makes it so that when you're doing your color changes, it's a little bit more smooth. If you do it when you're at this stage, you'll wind up with random polka dotting that you don't want on the other side of your color transition. So I like to go at it from here. So now we're going to tighten up our magic circle, and like I showed before, if you pull on the tail, it makes that circle smaller. So we're going to just go ahead and pull it nice and tight. Like that. Beautiful. And now it's going to be a lot easier to make that color change because everything's tighter and you can basically just let go. So, same as before, I'm going to cut my thread like an inch or 2 away from where my hook is. I'm going to go back to the orange. And I'm going to tie it on nice and close to the hook. Just with a standard square knot. And finish out my single crochet, just like that. And that is our first full round on the magic circle. For the next round, we're going to do another total of 5 stitches because we have our 1, 2, 3 orange stitches here and 1, 2 white stitches, so we have 5 total stitches. We're going to do another set of 5 in the 3 orange and 2 white again, all in single crochet. So in our first stitch, we're going to go through both of these loops here on the outside, and if you look around the outside of the magic circle, you can see all those loops. And there's 2 for each. That's the outside of your single crochets that you did for the first bit. We're going to go through both of those loops, just like that, and do 1 single crochet in each of these 3 stitches. And then again, when we get to this point, we're going to stop where we only have the 2 loops so that we can change to white. Now that's changed to white, I'm going to finish at that single crochet and then do 1 in white and then half again in white so that we stop with that 2 loops there. And as you can see, as I'm going, I'm also kind of massaging the yarn away from that first round so that I can encourage what is going to be a nose eventually to go back towards the rest of the body. To look at the ones that I've already done, as you can see, we've got essentially that same little nose shape there that's proceeding backward, and that's where we're at. So I'm going to just color change back to orange real quick. Alright, for this next round, we're going to start working in increases. So to do an increase, we're just going to add in more single crochets per base stitch. So for this first one, we're going to do 2. So in that first stitch, that's 1 single crochet, and then 2 single crochets. And we're going to put 2 single crochets in all the stitches around the top here. So there's going to be 6 across the top of the orange. Once we've got our 6, we're going to put in 1/2 in orange. So to just the 2 loops, we're going to go into that white stitch, that first white stitch. And then we're going to stop here so that we can change over to white. And to keep all of our increasing uniform, we've only put one stitch in this white stitch, so we're going to put in another for 2. And then we're going to go back to this next white stitch, only do half of a single crochet so that we can change back to orange. There is a lot of color changing in this pattern because each row gets that little bit of that white belly. Alright, and then finish out that single crochet and put our last one right in that same stitch. So now we have a total of 10 stitches going around. And we can already see that nose starting to shape out. We're going to do another round of increases to make it so that our little fox is going to be at its widest 15 stitches around. To do this one, we're going to do 1 single crochet in this first stitch and then 2 single crochet in the next stitch. Like that. Same thing with the next. 1 single crochet, then 2 single crochet. As we get to the end, we are on 1 single crochet after having just done 2. Put 1 in. We're going to stop so that we can change colors back to white, because we're back at the white, which is the nice, cute fox belly. I just love foxes. They're so wonderfully adorable. They're my favorite animal. Alright, so we're going to just go ahead and tie our white on, finish the single crochet, and because we just did that 1 stitch here, we're going to do 2 stitches in the next 2, and then 1 single crochet here. And that is it for increases until we get down to the tail. So we're going to change back to orange. And on this next row, after we've done all of our increases, is going to be where we start to just make the nice body out. On this one, we're going to make the ears on this round. So we're going to start by going 1 stitch, 1 single crochet per stitch. We're going to go 5. Alright, I'm on my 5th stitch. Now we're going to do what's called a chain. To make a chain, we're staying with this 1 loop out here, and we're going to work away from the body just a little bit. And we're just going to grab the yarn without going through anything and pull it through. That's 1 chain. So we're going to chain 2. Like that. And now you can see that there's these 2 loops on this side, and then back humps on this side. We're going to go into this back hump that's close to the body here, right there. We're going to take our crochet hook, we're going to go through that, and we're going to do a single crochet into that back hump, just like we did on the body. And now we're going to do what's called a slip stitch to the stitch that we originated this chain from. So that's right here for me. See that? Right there. A slip stitch is where instead of coming out here and forming out our single crochet, we're going to just take that yarn and loop it straight through both the body and the loop that we were just starting from. And that is 1 ear. So now going along, we're going to do another 3 single crochets. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to do the same thing for the ear. So that was chain 2. 1, 2. Single crochet into the back hump, like that. And then slip stitch back to the originating stitch, right there. Now we get to continue down the rest of the body, 1 stitch each. When we get to this stitch, right at the edge of the white, we're going to stop with our 2 loops here. And instead of changing to white, we're going to take a brief detour to make a foot. We make the foot in basically the same way, as you can see. We have our cute little foot. We're going to be making this foot here. And it's right in line with the ears. We make it the exact same way we make the ears, but instead of it being orange, it is going to be brown. So we've just reached this final single crochet in orange. Cut our yarn so that we can transition into our brown yarn for the feet. And tie it on, finish that single crochet. And now, same as we did before, we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then single crochet into this back hump here. And then before we go and do our final slip stitch, we're going to color change. So we've just finished our single crochet, and we only have 1 loop on the yarn, and we're going to change to white, because the next thing we're going to do is go into this white belly here. And if we don't change into white before we do this, you're going to have a weird brown spot on the belly. So this is where we want to do it. We have our white, we have our brown, we're going to slip stitch to that originating stitch right there. Pull it through both, just like that. Now we're going to do our 3 single crochets across the belly. And again, we're stopping at the edge of this orange so that we can color change to brown for the other foot. Finish our single crochet, and then we're going to do 1 single crochet over into the orange. That way that foot, instead of coming out of the white, is going to come out of the edge of the belly in the orange. Then we're going to chain 2, single crochet to the back hump, and then before we do that slip stitch, change back to orange again. I know there's so many color changes. And then slip stitch to the originating stitch like that. Now we're going to do, same as before, we're going to do 1 single crochet per stitch. And as we get up to the ear, we want to make sure we don't accidentally add in stitches where there shouldn't be any. So to do that, we start by putting 1 stitch in this gap right here, because that is where a single crochet was in the previous round. And then we're going to do our next one. It feels like you might want to do, I always get mixed up, I always want to put a single crochet in this hole here, but that's not where you want to go. You want to feel like you're kind of skipping over and then go into this next loop over here. And make sure you're guiding the yarn behind the ear, just like that, and pulling out. And when you have the 2 loops on it, you can kind of push that ear forward and give it a good tug to make sure it is on the outside of the yarn. You don't want it over here, because that would get it lost in the inside of the body, and at that point, why have you made an ear? So now we have our single crochet there. Finish it out. And then the 2, 3 that we had put in before, and same as before, not into this hole. That's not our hole. We want to go into this hole right there. Push the ear out, finish that single crochet. You can already very distinctly see that this is the form of a fox forming. Finish out our next 3. Yeah. And then while we're still on the outside of this foot, we want to make it so that we can go through those 2 loops with the white yarn. And with the feet, same as with the ear, we don't want to go into this hole. It's a little bit easier to see because there's so many different colors here. This is not the hole we're going into. We're going into this first white hole. Right there. Pull the foot towards you. Finish the single crochet. And the other 2. And then while we're here, we're going to change to orange. And while we're orange, we're actually going to put our first orange stitch on this side of the foot, and our next one on the far side. Like that. And if you don't put all the stitches in the right spot, you're just going to wind up with an extra chunky fox, which, as you can see, they're already pretty fat. They don't necessarily need to be fatter. You can make them fatter, by all means, you know, have fun, but if you avoid putting extra stitches in, at this point you would be able to go around and count out 15. I'm going to put in 2 more stitches here, and then at this point we're going to pause so that we can put the eyes in. You can pause either by putting a stitch marker in your loop where the crochet hook is to hold it in place, or I like to just tug a length of yarn through so that it doesn't get undone while I'm working, and I can set that hook down. That way it's not in my way. We're going to put our eyes in. So we're going to take these 2 eyes, and you can kind of put them wherever you want to. Just make sure they'll slot really easily between your stitches. So I'm going to put one eye right in here. I'm going to stick my other one right there. Feels pretty okay with me. And maybe I'm going to shift this one over a little bit. Oh no, that looks dorkier. I'm going to keep them right there. This is a go with your gut kind of moment. You can put those little eyes kind of wherever you want. I, as you can see, frequently put them in slightly different positions. I don't know why. It just calls to me. So this is where this ones are called to me. And now to make it really easy, you can take your thumbs, one thumb each, and push them on the inside of these eyes so that you can flip the yarn inside out. And that way we have access to the backs, and we're going to take our washers and just slide them onto those backs. Just until they click into place. It should be fairly obvious. They'll be nice and secure, and you won't be able to knock them back out again very easily. Now that we're there, we're going to do one single crochet around in the orange until we get back to the white again. Then we're going to change back to white. We're going to continue that for a total of 4 rows past the legs. So we already did our 1 row. We're going to do another 3. So that's 1, another 3. So I'm now on the 4th row from where I made the feet. As you can see, there are, let me loop that through a little bit better, make it more obvious. Oh no. Okay, so I am on the 4th row. So from the feet, we put in 1, 2, 3, and I am now on the 4th row here. So we're gonna put in another set of feet, just like we did before. So I'm gonna come in here, do half a single crochet, so that I can switch to brown. Chain 2, single crochet back, and then switch back to white. And this is the last time we will be using white for the belly. It's not the last time we're going to be using white because foxes have cute little white tip tails. And then 1, 2, 3, switch to brown again, and make the other foot same way we've been doing this whole time. Single crochet into the next bit, chain 2, single crochet, switch back to orange. Now we get to hang out in orange for a couple rows. And then slip stitch back to the starting stitch. So there we are. Stick all those tails in the body. We don't need them. Now we're going to start to make the body smaller so that it narrows out at the butt before we start into the tail. To do that, we're going to do 1 single crochet in this first stitch. Then we're going to do a reduction stitch. The way I like to do these is you can either take your first stitch and skip over it, put a single crochet in there, and that'll make it smaller, or I prefer just doing looping through here as though I was going to do a single crochet in that first stitch, and then looping through the second one as well, and pulling through all 3 of those loops. Just like that. We're going to do another reduction stitch in the next stitch, and another, and another. So that's 4 reduction stitches across the back after doing 1 single crochet after the foot there. From here, we're going to do 1 single crochet by the foot. And then, same as before, we want to make sure we don't accidentally add stitches, especially now that we're reducing. So we're going to go into this white stitch here. Pull that tail out before continuing, and we're doing a reduction stitch. So into the next one as well. Pull through all 3. And then 1 single crochet in this stitch. Reduction stitch in the next. Push that little foot out. And this is a good place to pause and put a little bit of stuffing in the body, because right now it's just a little flat. I'm going to take my stuffing and tear off little clumps. If you work in little clumps at a time, it won't bunch up a lot and you won't have weird lumpy bits, which isn't as big of an issue with something as small as these are, but still something to be aware of. If you work in small amounts and build your way up, your stuffing will look a lot better. I'm just going to take my finger and use it to stuff it in. I'm going to get a little bit more. And just make sure you're filling all the gaps really nicely until it is as firm as you want him to be. I'm going to do just a little bit more personally. Once you have the body as stuffed as you want it to be, we're going to continue to make it this gap back here just ever so slightly smaller. With another reduction stitch. Get that stuffing out of there. We don't need it wrapped around the yarn. Okay. And then one last reduction stitch. At this point, we have a gap of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches around, which means we can start to make our tail. So what we're going to do is do an increase stitch in each, just to make it one bigger. So we're going to do 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet in that first stitch. Same with all of them until we have all 6 filled, which makes for 12 stitches in this next round. Alright, that is 12. And we can already see that that's that tail starting to form out there. We are going to do 2 rows of 1 single crochet per stitch. So that's around size of 12. 2 more rows, 1 stitch each. Alright, we've got our 12, which means we can start to make the tail smaller. To make our tail smaller, we're going to do the pattern of 1 single crochet in the first stitch, reduction stitch in the next. 1 single crochet, reduction stitch. We're going to do that pattern of 1 and then reduction 2 more times. And there we are. I'm going to pull some of that yarn through so that I can stuff the tail. Same way we stuffed the body. Make sure you're working in small amounts of stuffing. Just get into all the little nooks and crannies that you've got inside that tail. On the tail, you want to make sure you stuff it just ever so slightly more so that when we finish out and we get this nice point, that point can also get filled with stuffing. I now have that stuffed as much as I want it to. We're going to go back to our stitches and we're going to change to white. And in changing to white, we want to make it so that this tip of the tail is mostly completely just straight across in a nice arc. If you look carefully, you can see where I've done this before on this fox here. To make it a little bit smoother a transition instead of a really, really jagged one, we're going to start by doing a slip stitch into the stitch that we are already in, just like that. And we're going to change our color to white. Push those tails into the body, and then we're going to chain 1 with that white. Now we're going to do 1 stitch in each of the stitches around. There should be 9, so that's 1 single crochet in each stitch for 9 stitches. So that's our 9. And as you can see, there's just a little bit of a lift there, a little bit of a zigzag. Without doing that slip stitch on that final orange, it would be much more pronounced. So now what we're going to do is a series of only decreased stitches. So we're going to do about 8. So we're going to do 4. There were 8 stitches in the round, well 9 stitches in the round. We were only going to do 4 of the decreased stitches. And at this point we have finished at the top of the tail. What we're going to do is leave it with that final decreased stitch, and we're going to cut ourselves a nice length of yarn that we can sew it closed with. So I'm going to cut about that much, which is way more than I need, but it makes my life easier. So I'm going to take that, and to make your life easier when working with any needle really, but especially with yarn, if you take your yarn, your tail that you're going to sew it closed with, and fold it in half so you have that arc there, and then pinch it so that it's barely sticking out between two fingers. You can see it barely sticking out there. And then we're going to take our needle so that the eye is straight in line with it. You can then just push it through by kind of rubbing back and forth very gently, and it'll slide through way easier than if you're trying to force it through with the open end. And then we're going to go through each of our loops around the circle, right at the tip of the tail, and tie it shut. So we've gone through all the loops. I'm going to give it a nice tug to tighten up that hole. And then I'm going to just tie off my tail, just like that. And I'm going to lose a lot of the excess inside the body, so I'm just going to slide it through so that it comes out any hole. And pull it through. Don't pull so much that you lose the tip of your tail and make it look funky. Just give it a nice gentle tug. And then if you're understuffed, at this point you can use this tail inside the body. Just use your needle to kind of push it back in. Or mine is stuffed to my satisfaction, so I'm just going to cut the tail. And then give the whole fox a nice massage to make sure all the stuffing is sitting where I want it to sit. And you have a complete little fox. Very cute. I have a little bit of a crookedness going on here, so I'm going to actually take my needle, slide it into the nose there so I have a little bit more traction, and it looks like torture and I hate it, but you're gonna just sort of nicely, gently give it a good twist so that it sits more where you want it to do. I always feel awful when I do that. But there we go. Now it's sitting more in line with how I want it to sit, and I have another cute little fox that can join all of his foxy little friends. Have a little fox party. I want to go to a fox party. But thanks for watching. I hope that it made sense. I hope that you learned a lot today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I am more than happy to answer to the best of my abilities. And I will see you soon with another cute, you might have noticed these little teasers in the background, another cute pattern. Thank you!